Hello, my name is Jim Heeb from the Natural Stone Institute, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to today's session, where we will provide you with an update from the U.S. stone market. We'd like to thank the folks at Marmomac for this opportunity and thank everyone for supporting Marmomac Restart. It's a wonderful platform for us to connect together, and we look forward to next year when we can all again meet in person in beautiful Verona, Italy. Today we have really three learning objectives. And from the US market, we're going to share with you a little bit about how COVID-19 has impacted our industry here in the United States. And we've got four wonderful industry leaders to help do that. We're going to help you gain some insight into their experiences, but we're going to talk about not just stone companies. We're going to be talking about how architects, specifiers, and designers, how we've all had to adjust our business during the last 10 months. And then what's always nice to hear from people that are in the trenches from a variety of industry segments, we're going to learn their views on future trends for stone use. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists. We have Jeff Erickson, Jim Hogan, Katie Jensen, and Bob Zavagno. I do want to make a note that Bob Zavagno is the current president for the Natural Stone Institute. And with that, Bob, would you please start and share a little bit about your business and about your company?
Yes, I am the president of Cleveland Marble. We've been in business since 1924. We are strictly a stone installer. We don't have a shop. We don't import stone, cut stone, polish stone. We just install it. We will get materials that are specified from all over the world, from China, from Italy, from Portugal, Spain, France, Mexico, Canada, and here in the US, and we'll bring those stones in and we'll install them. We do the engineering and the drawings for those jobs, and then we install the material. I personally have been involved in the business for 34 years. I started here in 1986. I'm the third generation to run the business. Like I said, we've been in business since 1924. We have offices, our home office is in Cleveland, and then we have satellite offices. Actually, they're bigger than satellite offices, but we have offices in Chicago and Los Angeles. And we'll work anywhere in the United States. So we get a good feel about what is going on in the market. We don't leave the US, but we do work every facet of stone installation and any kind of stone in all corners of the US, including Hawaii. We go from Seattle to Miami and Boston to San Diego and everywhere in between. So we get a good feeling about where the economy is as a nation. We also get a good feeling about where the economy has hotspots, as they call them. Our company has been very busy in the last few years in Nashville, Tennessee. 10 years ago, we were very busy, and 20 years ago, we were very busy in Atlanta. Trends move, people move. 20 years ago, you would have never thought that Nashville would be what it is today, or that some of the other cities that have really gotten popular, Washington, D.C., which has been completely changed, the city of Washington, D.C., and some of the other cities, Denver. Denver is a place we went back in the 80s, didn't go back for 30 years, and now it's busy as can be. So that's a little bit about us and what we do.
Thank you, Bob. Jim Hogan, can you share a little bit about your company and yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Jim. I'm the Senior Vice President of Carrara Marble Company of America. We're headquartered in City of Industry, California, just outside of Los Angeles. We have offices in San Francisco and in Las Vegas, and that pretty well defines our market, the state of California and the city of Las Vegas. We've been in business since 1953. We're a commercial stone contractor, an NSI accredited company, and we not only contract and install commercial projects, but we have a fabrication facility that probably contributes to about 15% of the total square footage of material that we install in any given year. We have imported from, like Cleveland Marble, from all countries around the world, wherever the material is, according to the specifications and our suppliers. So we're very familiar with the stone market and what the trends are. I have been with the company for 35 years. was past president of the MIA NSI, and we are an accredited company, as I mentioned. And I think that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you, Jim. And both Bob and Jim represent the kind of the installer segment of our industry. Also, now I'd like to call on Katie Jensen. Katie, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, of course, Jim. Thanks. My name is Katie Jensen. I'm the president of Triton Stone. It's my family's company. We opened in 2006. We currently have 22 locations in the Southeast. So we are importers and distributors. We import natural stone, quartz, as well as sinks, and we supply tooling supplies to all our fabricators. We have, we've also seen the market change greatly in the last year, and we're very optimistic about the future.
Katie, a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. I was born and raised in New Orleans. I went to college at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. I currently live in Mandeville, which is right over the lake from New Orleans, and I have 4 children, 3 girls and a little boy.
Katie's also very active with our Women in Stone program, and we also do a pretty special program with the Gary Sinise Foundation, where we're getting stone into homes of military veterans and first responders who have been severely wounded or hurt, and she's provided great leadership there. Thank you, Katie. And Katie represents the importer and distribution arm of our industry. And now I'd like to call on Jeff Erickson to introduce himself.
Thanks, Jim. I am Jeff Erickson. I'm a co-owner of Cutting Edge Countertops, and I serve as its COO. So I'm in charge of the operational side of the business. We started in 2006, and we are a regional fabricator at this point. As far as fabricators go, we're probably on the larger side. We do about 45 to 50 projects a day, which is a challenge in and of itself. But we operate in the Toledo metro area, mid-Michigan, and the Indianapolis market. We are also an NSI accredited company. We got that back in 2007-ish. Pretty proud of that. Last year around this time, I ran for the board of directors for NSI, and by good fortune, I was somehow able to get on. So I'm happy to be doing that, and happy to be here today.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff. And one of the things that everyone that's listening in should have noticed is that both of our installers and our fabricators have received the NSI accreditation. And Jeff also serves on our accreditation commission, and we thank him for his service there. So as we get into our first topic is to learn a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 in the US from our industry leaders. Really, COVID impacted and started to hit the United States in March of 2020, impacting all sectors of the stone business, which is well known. Our panelists today, again, represent 3 different industry segments. Katie represents import distribution, Jeff fabrication. Both Jim and Bob represent the installation segment of our industry. So it's great that we have them here today to share how COVID-19 has impacted their business and specifically their industry segment. We should all gain some insight into the impact from this diverse group. And so the first question I want to pose today to Katie is, Katie, as an importer of stone, we know that the supply chain has been disrupted. Today, things are better than they were in the spring of 2020, but can you give an overview of what you and other importers have experienced in the last 60 days?
Yeah, so you're definitely right in saying there's been many supply chain challenges this year. While it has gotten better, I think we all know most all countries are now fully open and functioning. Our biggest issue right now, however, is dealing with the container imbalance. Due to 3 and 4 months ago, a lot of vessels and shipping lines had to stop calling locations, which caused an imbalance of containers. So now we're having and seeing a backup of material that's ready because the countries and the factories are open, but they're not able to be shipped simply because there's not enough space on the containers right now. So in talking with, the ocean transportation team, it appears that it's going to probably be like that through the end of 2020 until, we can get back to that flow. I think that, we're typically used to, where it really takes, 4 weeks or 6 weeks from India, 4 weeks from Brazil to get to the US. But, again, I think most customers and consumers are very understanding if you are running out of stock. It's not like it's on anyone's fault, so to speak. It's just, one of the challenges that we're facing right now.
Thanks for that. And Katie, you would say that your experience is pretty similar to what all the importers are going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. It all is coming down to how much space have you gotten on that vessel, and if you're trying to ship more containers than space, it's the material is going to be delayed.
Hey, Bob, as an installer, you source cut to size. And I like to ask this question because Marmomac being a show that's in Verona, Italy, and so Italy-centric, what's been your experience the last 60 days sourcing cut to size stone out of Italy?
They're at work. I was pretty easy to get a hold of everybody over there. Our problem with it is that we're not able to travel to Italy to check on our projects that are cut to size projects. And we have a few projects that we landed well before COVID, and some projects that we landed during COVID, and we can't travel to Italy to check on our jobs. So we just finished a very large job where we just held our breath to see if everything came in according to plan, and it did. But now we've got several more where we are hoping that nothing goes wrong, and we have no way to check except our agent in Italy is going over and checking on our projects. But not being able to travel to Europe at a drop of a hat, and I used to travel to Europe anywhere from 4 to 10 times a year to check on our projects. We're not able to get into the country. That's a big deal. We really are concerned that if something goes wrong, we can't turn the clock back. We need to open the borders, but who can say? There's just no way they're going to let us in right now. Americans can't travel to Italy.
Yeah.
Bob, thanks for that perspective. And Jim, you too, as a commercial installer, what are you and other installers, your peers in the industry, what are you experiencing on job sites right now that we would want those listening in today's session to know about?
On the commercial job sites, what we found over the last 3 to 5 months, and it varies from one state to the next, is that the restrictions and the controls that are being imposed on the actual construction workers themselves can hinder your productivity. As a minimum, they're going to have an impact. You're not going to be as productive as you are or typically used to. And at a maximum, it can severely affect what you budgeted the job for in terms of labor. And what happens is that on a job site, before you're able to get your safety sticker on your hard hat, you have to attend the orientation, the safety, the wellness programs. And then on a daily basis, every worker, architect, project manager, anybody who gets onto the job site must go to the wellness check station that the general contractor has set up and go through a daily wellness check and then get issued a wristband, and then you're allowed on the job site. That takes a bit of time, and the trick is to download the app that the general contractor will provide that allows you to answer the questions before you get to the daily wellness site. Then once you get there, they measure your take your temperature, issue you your badge, and you're on your way. So the trick is to make sure that you're fully aware of the programs at hand and how you can increase your efficiency to get your guys on the job site rather than having them stand in a queue for 15, 20 minutes before they're able to even get their wristband. Also, we're having challenges with man lifts. You're allowed 3 personnel plus the man lift operator. So the trick is to try and schedule stocking your floors to off hours and then convincing your workers to use the stairs whenever they can, because you'll find that you're going to have your manpower stranded on multiple floors because of the restrictions they're imposing on the man lift operators.
Jim, thanks for sharing that perspective. Jeff, Katie spoke about the supply chain of stone into the U.S. Can you talk a little bit about the countertop fabrication sector? how is business? I mean, I hear a lot of reports that the residential market's doing well right now. Is that correct? We'd love to get your perspective.
I would say by and large, it's probably a severe understatement. Most of the fabricators I talk to are experiencing the same thing we are, which is just unprecedented levels of business. We were having a good year as it was before the pandemic hit. So we were kind of on a good trajectory during that period of time. And then in late March, when we had the shutdowns and we had laid some people off and we had sent people home, and it was just a lot of uncertainty going on, and we just didn't know what to think, probably like a lot of you. And we started bringing people back in early May. I guess we were starting to feel safe, and our people were getting more comfortable getting back in houses, and our employees that are people that physically have to be here were more comfortable being in the environment. We started very cautiously ramping up. And in hindsight, we really should have ramped up much quicker because, like I said, it is just almost unbelievable how much the demand had increased beyond the trajectory that we had been on earlier in the year pre-pandemic. So, and I think that's the case with most residential construction people. Go try to get anything done in your house right now and see how quickly you'll get contractors and bids and things like that to happen. It's pretty jammed up. ABC just did a piece on a semi-local place to here, Solder Woodworking, which makes pre-assembled furniture, and their online business through this pandemic has gone absolutely through the roof. They cannot keep up with demand. They're, of course, selling desks to all the homeschooling that's going on right now. And so they're having their salaried employees working in the floor. They have to spend a certain amount of time on the floor just to help out the cause. So we're experiencing the same thing. We're blessed, obviously, to have that going on. There's a lot of businesses that have been adversely affected by the pandemic and have stayed that way for them. So we feel really blessed.
Appreciate you sharing that perspective from the countertop fabrication sector. Before we move to the next question, anybody else have anything else to add that you wanted to share, something your colleagues said that you'd like to add to? All right.
Jim, this is Jim Hogan. Yeah, I just want to follow through on what Bob Savagno was saying about the inspectors and having to use them in lieu of being able to go through what we've all been doing for decades and decades, which is the personal dog and pony show with the owner, architect, contractor, doing range selection, and then following up with productivity and quality control of the job. You simply can't get to a foreign country from the U.S. because of the restrictions the countries are imposing or the restrictions the U.S. is imposing on the way back. So you're ended up relying on the inspectors that we've all hired over the years, and they're in high demand right now. And as far as jobs in the future, it's pretty difficult to forecast how we're going to be able to resume this because the owners are typically pretty insistent that there be some kind of an inspection at the plant. And of course, as the importers, we are very anxious to have a presence over there and make sure things are going according to schedule and within the quality control parameters. So those personal visits that we've all been doing for many, many years are just simply on hold, and there's no idea of when they'll be lifted. And it's a big part of our business. So I just wanted to emphasize that I agreed with Bob on that.
Thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and segue into our next section. And it's really all about how businesses have adjusted their business during the pandemic, but not just to focus on the stone industry. So, the design community, architects, specifiers, and designers have a huge impact on the stone sector. So our next set of questions will help you gain some insight into how they have adjusted their businesses. We also want to hear about how our panelists have adjusted their businesses. And so to start us off on this section, I'm going to call on Jeff Erickson. Jeff, what I love about your business is the showroom, the beautiful showroom you have. You have sales representatives interacting with interior designers on a regular basis. How have interior designers adjusted their business during the last 10 months?
Well, being on the operational side of the business, I don't get to talk to a lot of them directly, but they're experiencing much the same thing that we are. They're having a huge surge. My wife and I just happen to be going through a large remodel right now, so I actually asked our designer what she was experiencing. They're doing a lot more online, virtual type stuff. There's still the need to actually go physically pick things out, so they're still having to do that, but they're trying to keep that to a minimum. They're right in line with the residential trend that's happening.
You having any issues with traffic in your showroom right now?
When it first came back, we went appointment only, which, by the way, we're probably going to stay with because it actually serves both parties very well because we have ample time to deal with them. But yeah, it was hard to schedule the amount of demand that was coming into the showrooms, and it was appointment only. So we actually had a line more or less to get in and get appointments taken care of. But we found that by doing that, our clients were much more focused by the time they showed up, and there was, like I said, ample time to spend the full amount of time that they deserve to have. So it actually worked out really well. No issues with demand other than sometimes there's too much, which is a high-class problem.
So basically what you've shared is a lot of stuff's being done virtually, a lot of appointment only in the showrooms, but that by going to appointment only, the quality time with ultimately the client is improved.
100%. Also, I should mention, we virtualized our inventory much like a lot of people have. So every piece of inventory as it comes in the door is photographed and pushed to a live display. So people that go to our websites can view that inventory literally live. So that, when a customer finally does come in, they're very prepared. They've whittled down their choices. They kind of know what they want. So it's kind of opened our eyes. I think we're going to change some things even after this pandemic is over.
Thank you, Jeff. Katie, you probably can offer a similar perspective that Jeff does from a designer standpoint, but you also sell to stone companies. So, what have you seen the stone fabricators you work with do, and what about the designers?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of what we see is mimicking, what Jeff is saying. Thankfully, demand has been very strong. What's driven it is a lot of different things, but the remodeling and the building space is very strong right now. In dealing with our fabricators, I think, what's been important is, communication and testing their level of comfort. I think that was a big thing at the beginning. But, in general, our footprint is in the Southeast. So I think, there's less and less impacts of COVID that we're seeing, if that makes sense. I would say everyone's showrooms are open. Depending on states, maybe the masks are still required. But, our fabricators are really busy. They're struggling to get, all the jobs done in the time that they need. They're very backed up right now, which again is a good thing. It's positive for our industry. In terms of our showrooms, we have the walk-in traffic and work with designers as well. We went to virtual appointments and then appointment only for a while, which we are keeping it. It's definitely forced us as a company to make changes that I don't think we would have made before that have made our company stronger. And, I think you're getting more quality customers. People are pointed about what they're doing. So if they're coming to look at stone, they are probably going to be buying it. And that has been, it's been a better trajectory in terms of like closing and selling for those customers. So, overall, very positive.
Thank you for sharing the perspective, both Jeff and Katie, kind of more so on the residential side. Bob, as we go to the commercial side, I've heard you speak from time to time about the work you're doing with architects and kind of the slowness of them getting out of their homes and getting back to job sites or their offices. Can you talk a little bit about what you meant by that and how that's impacting the commercial side of our industry?
Well, and everybody, I think somebody on the board made a comment that anybody who's in the commercial side of this business lives off of a backlog. We're in a backlog business. And so jobs that we're doing now, we landed well below before COVID. So the fact that we're not seeing as many jobs to bid now makes me realize that architects, designers, and even general contractors and construction managers and owners, especially owners, have put jobs on hold because of COVID. Somebody who's doing their house or doing a small office or doing a renovation doesn't have to worry about the COVID. But when this thing started in March, everybody went into a panic and people quit coming to work. That's not going to feel, I'm not going to feel that. Anybody who's in the commercial business isn't going to feel that in April. Okay. They're going to feel that in 2021 or even 2022. There are probably 10 jobs across the country that we follow that are very, very large stone jobs in different places. And we have them on our radar: Chicago, Nashville, Denver, like I said, Los Angeles, Columbus. And these are all jobs that, even here in Cleveland, these are jobs that are headquarter buildings, hospitals, universities, libraries, art museums, things like that. And when this COVID hit, a lot of the people who were working on those jobs stopped. And so am I going to feel it in March, April, and May of this year? No, I'm going to feel it in 2021 or 22. So that's what I was talking about. And I think that's going to be a problem for people in the commercial industry a year out from now.
Bob, thanks again for sharing that perspective. Shifting now also on the commercial side over to Jim Hogan. Jim, what's happening from your perspective right now with the U.S. market and the work we're doing with specifiers and also bid requests? How are they coming in? Are they slow? Are they coming in at a rapid speed? Kind of share your perspective.
Thank you, Jim. The specifiers are apparently unaware of the difficulties we're having bringing stone in from foreign countries because it hasn't stopped them from including these materials in their specifications. So that's still, in our experience, pretty robust with regard to the importing of foreign materials along with the domestic materials. But we're experiencing the same thing that Bob Zavagno described, where jobs in development are all of a sudden on hold for reasons ranging from they didn't get financing to the uncertainty in the market to it was primarily an office building and now they're looking at mixed use residential because the new landscape in the US may be that there are not as many office spaces required as people get comfortable with working from remote locations or from home. And those things have impacted the timeline that we receive bids and that we're asked to provide bids back to the developers because they're uncertain as to whether or not the project itself is going to fly or if it's going to be reconfigured to meet what they anticipate is the demand in the market.
Thank you, Jim. I want to shift gears a little bit on the same topic of how business has adjusted their business. You guys have done a great job kind of sharing what's going on with designers, specifiers, and architects. But could we talk just a little bit about your specific business and in 30 seconds or less? So I'm going to ask you to summarize it and be pretty concise. But could you describe how your business has been impacted? What would you say? And Bob, can we start with you? 30 seconds or less. How has your business been impacted?
Our business has been impacted because of the what we can see in the future. Our business today has not been impacted, but we've had to make changes today to affect what's going to happen in the future. We've had to redeploy people, almost the opposite of what we talked about, where people in an office are going in a field. We've now had people who work in the field who are now bringing in the office to get ready for maybe 2021 or 2022. We're feeling that this jam up is not caused by the economy. It's not caused by interest rates. It's not caused by anything that's hurt us before. It's a whole new thing. And when this thing gets freed up and we have a vaccine, or when it goes away from herd immunity or whatever you want to say, there's going to be a large demand in commercial work, and we want to be ready for it if it's 1 or 2 years down the road.
Great, thank you. Jim, how's this impacted your business?
Thank you, Jim. Similar to what Bob was saying, we've had the same experience here in California and in Las Vegas. One of the big things, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, was the issue of productivity on the job site and how we're adjusting to the COVID-19 restrictions that are being imposed by OSHA, whether it's workers' comp, executive orders, or loss of productivity on the job. But also the inability to make office calls, which in project development and business development has been a big part of our business, where you're always working with these design teams, looking out into the future, tracking projects that are underway. And with people not making office calls, not getting into somebody's office and sitting down across the desk from them and getting face to face, you wouldn't think that would have a big impact, but it has taken that human element out of things. And it's made it a bit more challenging for us to get a sense for where things are going, as confused as it is right now.
Thank you, Jim. Katie, how's your business been impacted?
I don't think I was going to be saying this back in March, but I'll be honest, and looking back, it's been a positive impact on where we are now compared to even January. We've gone to appointments. We have many more virtual options for our customers, whether it's to view their inventory or to have an appointment. We have new virtual and technology channels that we communicate with our fabricators. And then in addition, we've been able to get a really good team together. I think there's a lot more people out there looking for companies that are growing and building. So we've been able to build a really good team during this time as well.
Jeff, how have you adjusted your business?
So we've already talked a lot about the increased demand, and with COVID, it's put a real premium on attracting and retaining good employees, and it's been really challenging. Everybody knows about the unemployment rules that were put in place, and that just made it tougher to get people to work. Trust and communication became, trust and communication are always important, but they were even more important through this all. People need to know that you have their best interest in mind, that you're not just sending them out, and not caring what their future holds. And so I would say that's our biggest focus right now, is just keeping everybody safe and keeping everybody confident that they're going to, be okay working in the environment they work in, and then, doing everything we can to attract and keep really good people.
So we've talked about the impact of COVID. We've talked about adjustments that have been made in our industry, especially here in the United States. We now want to talk a little bit and share some views about what we anticipate coming in the months ahead. So given COVID-19, it might be difficult to predict future trends for stone use, but we'd like to turn it over to our panelists and give each of them the opportunity to share a little bit in terms of what they see as future trends for stone use from their industry segment's perspective. And Jeff, could we start with you, please?
Well, as an operations guy, I'm really going to give you some great insights as to all the design trends. But I did go talk to our salespeople. These are going to be pretty obvious to a lot of fabricators because we're probably all seeing the same thing. And of course, we're in the Midwest, so we see things 6 months after the East and West Coast do. But quartzites are huge. It's a big push towards quartzites right now. I personally like those. Don't love fabricating them all the time, but they make a great countertop product. Waterfall legs, we're seeing a lot of that. Full height backsplash seems to be coming back. Mitered edgework, clean straight edges, eased edges, those types of things. We're going away from the traditional stuff. A lot of two-tone areas, islands that are different colors than the perimeters. This is an obvious one. Vein material over speckled material. A lot of Calcutta looking materials are very popular right now, and light colors continue to be a trend.
Jeff, thanks for sharing your perspectives. Katie, would you share some perspectives from your company and from what your segment is saying?
Yeah, well, not unfortunately, I guess, probably Jeff, we're in the same little Southeast pocket, right? So, also we're seeing a great demand for quartzites. I think more and more people, honestly, I feel like we're having more customers coming in very educated and they want a natural stone. And I think that's been really positive because of the options of what quartzite provides to them. So we're selling lots more quartzites. Our marbles have also been moving very well. We've been doing a couple projects where we have 2, 3, and 5 cm material all matches. So, those designers are really looking to, make that kind of clean. It's like, it's not traditional, but it's timeless. So more timeless material is what I feel, people are really going for. They don't want to be so trendy where they're going to be replacing their countertops in, 8 to 10 years.
Thank you, Katie, for sharing. Jim, can you share some perspectives from your point of view?
Thank you, Jim. Sure. We anticipate that the market will resume its consumption of natural stone products from around the world and domestically once the COVID atmosphere clears up. But we're also expecting that there's going to be continued competition from the non-natural stone products, particularly on, for example, interior office lobbies where we're starting to see a lot more porcelain, veneer. We're seeing more solid surface on lobby security desks, things like that. The natural stone still dominates site work and exterior veneers, but we anticipate that the non-natural products, whether it's sintered, porcelain, quartz-based, even despite the tariffs being imposed on certain countries around the world, we anticipate that those will continue to be a competitive product to the natural stone.
Jim, thanks for sharing. And obviously from, I think all of us, constantly focused on what can we do to keep natural stone front and center in the eyes of our clients, the owners, and consumers as well. Bob, can you share future trends that you see for stone use?
Definitely. I have said over the past probably 5 years that as natural stone installers or people in the industry, our competition is not our competitors. It's not other people who are in our industry. It's other products. I've been saying that over and over and over again to everyone to promote natural stone, that and like I said, we work all over the country. And I always tell everyone, when I lose a job that's a stone job to a competitor of mine, I say, that's good. We're going to have somebody who's busy so we can get other work. We very seldomly are losing jobs to a competitor more than we're losing them to another material. I can't get over, I haven't seen this in 34 years, how many of these other materials are coming in and how many people handle them and how many people are in that industry of handling man-made materials that look like stone, act like stone. It's incredible to me how much of my competition is alternative materials rather than alternative installers.
Thanks for sharing, Bob. We have a few minutes left before we're going to wrap up. Any closing comments that anyone would like to say on this topic of future trends? Additional perspectives?
This is Jim. I just wanted to follow up on something that Katie said at the very beginning with regard to shipping, because we're experiencing the same problems everyone else is with regard to importing. And it's probably worthwhile for people to keep in mind that 70% of all airplanes in the world remain grounded. So whatever they were carrying in their cargo, if they have to, they're shipping it via ocean freight. But about 60 to 65% of those cargo vessels are docked. So as a result, the ship capacity worldwide has been reduced drastically. So the shipping companies are making up for it by using fewer vessels and smaller vessels on these feeder lines that are headed to alternate ports. So it's going to take a little bit of calculus on your part as an importer working with your shipping agent to find out where these 20,000 TEU vessels are and what the lines are, because the landscape has changed so drastically that now, for example, some of the Chinese people are using feeder vessels into Busan, Korea, because there are more of these 13 or 20,000 TEUs available to ship to the US. And it's just something that you're going to have to anticipate and work with your freight forwarder, because it's really new landscape for all of us.
Jim, thanks for that perspective and that additional comment. Any other comments from the topics we've talked about today that you'd like to share? Well, Bob, this would be my time just to remind everyone that, particularly on this last topic of future trends and competing materials, do not forget that on a weekly and monthly basis, the Natural Stone Institute is publishing articles, social media posts that promote natural stone. All of that content being developed through our Use Natural Stone campaign is all there free for any stone company to use. So if you have a website, if you have a social media presence for your company, please share with your social media or marketing teams that that content is available, and we encourage you to repurpose it and to use it. And so at this time, we would like to again thank our participants today. Jeff, Jim, Katie, Bob, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives on 3 very important topics today. We encourage everyone to reach out to all of the exhibitors and fellow attendees on the Marmomac Restart platform. And of course, we encourage you to also stop by the Natural Stone Institute booth. We'd love to meet you and talk a little bit more about these topics and how we can help you become a stronger company. Thank you very much.